Hello, Fardjad.
Hi, Dimitri. How are you doing today?
Very good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Excited about the episode.
Super. So I wanted to call you and ask you a bunch of questions about your home setup because I preparing a new video about differences between home servers and what you can do with them and different types of them. And so far, I've been exploring scaling, let's say, vertically. So just what can you do if you have a beefier and bigger machine? But I also know that you have your own home cluster, and you also had a past with Synology when it died on you.
Yeah.
So I remember. So I wanted to ask a bit about your setup. What do you do with it? Well, a bit about hardware and software that you are using, and well, maybe some thoughts on what you could have done differently or where you will go forward from it.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe small history first. So since I already mentioned Synology, maybe you can tell a little bit about how you started with it and maybe what was your first home server.
Oh, yeah. So I bought a Synology unit a few years ago because I was just tired of synchronizing my files to cloud providers. I will not name names, but there was one in particular that was super slow, and yeah, it was not really interesting to use it as like long-term storage. So I wanted more storage, and I bought a Synology unit. And it was really great because the software is easy to use. You can get started in relatively no time. And the built-in software, the ones that are available through the marketplace of, I don't know what it is called anymore, but yeah, that the Synology App Store thingy, is very, polished, I would say. So that was my main like storage solution for a while, and I exported or I exposed multiple ways of using the storage, like Samba or NFS or the one for Pi machine backups and whatnot.
A quick question. Was it like a 2 hard drive unit, 4 hard drives? 6?
No, it was a 4-bay
okay.
DS, I think 620 plus, if I recall correctly. So that was the unit, and it was doing just fine. So there are problems with Synology. So first off, you're limited to using Synology hardware or Synology approved hardware, which I don't really like. Like if you want to, for example, add some more RAM, and if you want to run virtual machines, so you have to buy a certain brand that's certified by Synology, and then you can add it to the unit. Well, that's way too expensive compared to whatever you can buy off the market. I did it still, and I ran a virtual machine on it. Yeah.
What did you buy?
I think that by default it had 4 gigs of RAM, and I upgraded to a 16 gigabytes module. So one module is, I think, soldered to the board, and you can't really change it, but you can add another, for that particular model that I had, you could add another module to it to like have more RAM. So I did it, and that made it a way more capable device at home, and I started hosting things on it. So Synology has a KVM-based virtual machine manager, and I think the software is also called Virtual Machine Manager. So you can run different virtual machines, install whatever operating system you want on them, and then run whatever workload that you have. So I used to have a separate desktop somewhere running a few containers on it, and then I migrated everything to that single box. So migrating things to a single box is very nice in terms of simplicity, because that's just one unit to take care of. But occasionally I ran into the issue of wanting to, for example, upgrade the virtual machine that was on this
Container.
Synology unit, and then I needed to like restart it. And like if you run your, for example, DNS server for ad blocking and whatnot in one of those virtual machines, so while this is happening, you will lose access to basically internet on many of your devices that require DNS resolution, right? So,
quick question though, because I think the situation where you have let's say a normal Linux server and then you want to upgrade the service, then often you need to restart your Linux server. So sometimes it happens. You need to reboot. One way of circumventing this is what people are doing is having containers, right, and basic VMs. But why did you have to do it for the Synology? Is it because?
Yes, very good question. I actually forgot to say this. So Synology used to have a Docker engine and like a interface with which you could control Docker.
Yeah.
But that is way too limited for what I wanted to do. So it's not like you can, of course, you can enable SSH and you can SSH into the host and start playing with Docker. But yeah, it's nothing like the amount of control that you have on a single virtual machine. So I prefer to always run Docker engine on a virtual machine and isolate it from the storage related stuff, because well, I don't want to tinker around with the same unit that runs my important data. So and what I want to run is not like very demanding, so the overhead is not an issue. So it's just about reliability and being able to create a backup of whatever that runs on that unit whenever I need it and restore it. So anyways, like Synology virtual machines are just fine, and my problems were related mostly to my setup or the way I like configured my home lab, but you make trade-offs, right? So anyways, I was living with this for a while until the device failed on me because the restart button that's also soldered to the board broke. And I think that's a common issue. Like if you go to the support forums, you can see multiple reports of people facing the same issue. And then I contacted Synology support and they couldn't really give me a solution. And I actually lost data. Of course, I had backup and I could bring it back. But yeah, I was not really happy to see that like my whole unit failed and it became completely unusable.
And it's not. So just to make it clear, it's not that the whole unit failed, but the reset button failed.
No, so the reset button, when it fails, it's like you press it constantly, or it just keeps pressing itself randomly. So you can go and disable it somehow. Or so I saw a post where somebody showed how to open up the device and like cut out the switch from the rest of the board, I guess. I really didn't do that. Yeah, but now it's not that much usable or reliable for that matter. So I was looking for an excuse to do something else, to be honest. And well, I had a few mini PCs lying around, so they're not the same, or they're not like exactly identical machines, but so I bought them for different purposes. So for example, at some point I needed a Windows machine to do something, and I was not really going to run it on a virtual machine, and I had like a Apple Silicon which was not playing nicely with most of the virtualization tools back then. So for different reasons, I had those. And then, well, I made a cluster of like machines with those and decided to run whatever I have on them until you run that lost node again, and then it rebalances the cluster, and then it tries to repair, or I think repair is also not the correct word. It tries to basically heal itself. Let's call it like that. So that's
and how do you control it?
Oh yeah, through the Proxmox interface. Well, You can also SSH into any of your nodes and then run the Ceph command line tool to configure the cluster. But then the way I control it is that I just let Proxmox manages it, and I don't really touch it beyond that.
Yeah, for our less technical people and who would be interested to know more about how does it work in practice. You have 3 physical machines that run Proxmox on it, and then you have Ceph configured on top of it. At the same time, before that in the video, I talked only about controlling one machine. So how does it come to, basic administration of the cluster? How does it work technically in steps?
Yeah, so of course, Ceph is still Ceph, and it's available. You can SSH into any of those Proxmox instances and use the tools that are available with Ceph to configure it or tinker with it. The Proxmox interface also allows you to configure some of the options of your Ceph cluster, or, for example, create volumes and the file systems and whatnot. But then, I'll just limit everything I do to the Proxmox interface because I don't want to tinker with Ceph. And my main use case for it is the storage for my virtual machines. And like high availability for like migration of the virtual machines. For example, when I upgrade the software on one of the nodes and I want to restart it, I just migrate everything off of that machine to another, and it's just instant without losing any of the workloads that are running or processes being interrupted. And then I go ahead and maintain the machine and restart it, and then bring them back to where they were if needed.
And so let's say for the orchestration of this, recovery, right, or healing processes, do you need to do anything specific, or once you have it up and running, then it will do it itself?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So of course you have to always watch if your cluster is healthy, but if it's healthy, it just does its job. But whenever one of the nodes runs into some problems, you will get ample warnings and signs that something is wrong, and you have to take care of it. And of course, there's so it can tolerate a certain level of failure. So if one node fails, for example, in this current setup, it can still heal itself or kind of recover from that by using the other 2 nodes. It depends on how you configured it. But similar to RAID, or let's say RAID 5, for example, you can lose a certain number of drives or storage.
One drive,
units. I mean, it depends on how you configured it, but the way I did it is very similar to that. So I can lose one node just fine, and then when that node comes back up, it just continues and it heals itself, sort of.
Yeah, and things like let's say you have your hard drive. You have your hard units that you run your cluster on. They are obviously connected to the network themselves. Do you need to do any specific configuration for virtual connectivity? So you have your VMs there, right? How difficult it is, let's say, for a person who would do it the first time?
I wouldn't say it's difficult, but you have to know what you're doing in a way. So you'll run into some issues, and of course you have to configure your setup correctly. So what I have is a switch, and all of those machines are connected to that switch, and then networking is managed in Proxmox. So all of the nodes can see each other through one of the at least one of the interfaces on each of the machines. Not all of my machines have 2 network cards, but Yeah, that's a different story. So yeah, basically they need to be able to communicate with each other. And if you have a faster network, of course, the performance of your cluster will be better. For what I do, that doesn't really matter because the things I do not require like a fast storage. I just need compute, and I just need like to run the operating system, and as soon as it's in RAM, then it's fast enough to carry on with the operation. So yeah, I'm not that much worried about it.
So in terms of things that you run there, can you list what do you run in terms of services?
Yeah, but then I need to check. Let me see if I can come up with a good list. Right. All right. So I run AdGuard, which is a DNS that allows you to block advertisements on DNS level.
Similar to a P hole, right?
Yeah, pi hole, or yeah, that's very similar to that. I run Syncthing, and I really like it. It's a bookmark manager that allows you to, there was another software I forgot. So the one that was purchased by LastPass, I think it was called Xmark or something.
Okay.
It's similar to that in a way. So you can put links in there, you can tag them, it can fetch the contents of the page, and you can retrieve them. It has a really nice user interface with browser add-ons, so that you can like integrate your browsers and bookmark pages really fast with that. Another thing that I use a lot is Paperless. So I put all my PDFs and documents, or the things that I scan inside Paperless, and then I tag the content. It runs some kind of OCR on whatever you put in Paperless, so you can also search in there really easily. I also run a Postgres instance as like the database for most of these services. Syncthing, Paperless, and whatever that needs like a database, of course, uses that Postgres instance. And I have some ad hoc scripts to create regular backups and whatnot. Yeah, another thing that's that kind of contributes to my quality of life is that I run a Syncthing instance in there.
Yeah.
So this
Syncthing,
not necessarily, not just like for backups, but it's like so Syncthing allows you to synchronize like a directory or multiple directories across machines in a peer-to-peer manner. So this node that runs Syncthing can be part of this like group of nodes that are sharing files. I use it as the introducer for Syncthing. So all of these nodes are part of a VPN, and my mobile device is also connected to the same VPN. So everywhere I have access to my cluster. And then I run, for example, Obsidian for my note-taking, which is a local application. But then I save all the notes in a directory that is accessible by Syncthing. So Syncthing synchronizes that directory with all of the machines. And then I always have this node up and running. So if any of my clients want to synchronize the nodes, well, there's always this thing that takes them. And then it replicates them in all of the other clients when they are up and running. And I really like this setup because it's very flexible, and I don't need to, like, for example, get any third-party service or support for running Syncthing. If you have an iPhone, I think it will be a little bit harder to set it up like this. But for an Android device, well, you have file access, and Syncthing can run as a background process and just does its thing. I run a unified network server for my to control my unified switches and the access point. So for those who don't know, so if you have like a unified device that's managed, you need a separate software to configure it. So you can't really log into an interface and tinker with things. So I need the unified network server there. I run a bunch of ad hoc scripts that go and, for example, fetch a page for me and then give me an alert whenever something changes there. But those are not that much interesting. And of course, when I develop something and I need to run it at home, and well, I mean, I don't need to get like servers from any cloud provider.
Exactly.
I can just run it.
So also in the best traditions of like home lab, this is your actual home lab that you can play around with, and
Oh, and I forgot Home Assistant. So I also run VM of Home Assistant there.
So the home automation. And let's say that. So how critical is your data there, and do you back up your home server, and how do you do that?
So I have like tiers. We talked briefly about this, but maybe we can like talk more extensively about this at another opportunity.
Of course,
But then, like for super critical data, I have multiple backups and multiple copies on different types of storages or even storage services. Like a very small part of my data is also on like cloud managed storage, let's say, because I don't want to lose it. I can't afford to lose it. And I'm willing to pay for it, and I'm willing to go through the pain for that matter. But like a virtual,
not at home, right? You mean
not
that it is actually in a commercial cloud?
There is a copy of that at home, but that's not the source of truth, or at least that's not the only copy. So I have like a daemon that, for example, synchronizes a directory that's shared with other clients through SMB or NFS or whatever. So that I have a directory somewhere, but if I lose it, that doesn't mean that I will lose all the data there. But that's just like a small portion of the data. So, but like a big part of it is the virtual machines. And if I lose a virtual machine, there's no problem, because everything is in like a Git repository to configure everything again. So I use Ansible, and I have infrastructure as code, so I can like recreate this anywhere I want. And especially when I break my home lab, sometimes I just start from scratch, and that's easier than debugging the problems. And I can do that because it's my home. And not like someone else's service. So I don't take backups of those, but for files, like let's say my notes or my photos, or the things that are super important. So I have different solutions or different backup strategies for them. So when I want to make backups of files, I use a software called Restic. So Restic is very flexible, so you just need to give it some kind of storage, and then it goes ahead and creates an encrypted backup of the directories or the files that you give it. So I have it as a cron job running on my virtual machines to go and like replicate those. I have a very experimental I don't know, hacky implementation of file servers. No, sorry, container volume storage implementation. Let's say there's a software called JuiceFS.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. Yeah. Okay. JuiceFS. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you broke up for a second, sir.
Okay, open source distributed POSIX, AGFS, and S3 protocol. Okay, yeah.
So what it does, so if you have S3, and by the way, I also run an instance of MinIO. It's a single node, so it's not like a fancy cluster anywhere, but for my object storage, requirements at home, I run a MinIO instance. But then on MinIO, if you create an S3-like bucket, so you can't really use it to create a POSIX file system and attach it to a Docker container, for example. And then what I care about my Docker containers and Docker volumes is that I need to be able to, for example, stop a container on a host and then restart it on another host and use the same volume.
Mm-hmm.
So to solve this problem, I have this JuiceFS somewhere with a Postgres cluster with an extension that I developed myself that allows you to provision these JuiceFS file systems automatically. I can share a link to the GitHub repository, and that's like a super simple rudimentary implementation that just automatically creates the database, and it's absolutely not production ready, but hey, I'm the only user. So what it does is that I can say that, hey, I want a volume with this name, and then I want to attach it to this container that's running on whatever host.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gives me a POSIX compliant file system on which the container can store and load whatever data it needs. And then eventually it goes to the S3 cluster or S3 node. In my case, it's still a single node. And then I create regular backups of MinIO with some ad hoc scripts and like store everything somewhere else. So I have all my Docker volumes covered by that. So if I lose any of my Docker nodes, nothing will happen to it, and I just have to worry about one single machine for now with the JuiceFS thing. And also JuiceFS has some other tools with which you can like export the volume. So every once in a while, I just like create a full export and then save them somewhere. It's not scalable if the data grows infinitely, but it's just the good thing about running software for yourself is that you're one person and you can create so much data as one person. So that's not super hard to manage.
Yeah. Cool. And so we will. You will send the link, and I probably will put it here on the screen and in the description, obviously.
Yeah.
So what advice can you give to someone who, let's say, had a home server or a simple setup, and then they would want to try out to have a cluster, a distributed cluster, right? A home cloud. Mm-hmm. What would you tell them they should try first?
Well, it's hard to give advice. So I do it because I like it and I want to learn. And doing this helps you understand what happens underneath, and it's basically good for discovering new software or just becoming. I'm a software engineer, obviously, so it helps me be a better software engineer in a nutshell. But if you want to do it, make sure that you can maintain it. So especially if you're going to store critical data on it, so it is as good as the ability for you to restore your backups and recover from disaster scenarios.
Exactly.
So just you need to practice this regularly to make sure that everything still works, your backup scripts work, you're doing or like your system is doing what you think it is doing. Otherwise it will be too late and you will lose data. So my suggestion is to always start small. It's easy to play with these things if you want to just play with the software and get acquainted with the command line tools or interfaces, whatever. You can run some virtual machines on your local computer and then play around with them and get a feel for how much maintenance this thing requires, like what the upgrade process, try to deliberately break it and see what really happens. And then maybe
try to restore it as well, right? So imagine that your data is lost. Like what are the steps that you need to do to restore it to the working state? Indeed.
Absolutely. And yeah, once you feel a little more comfortable, maybe we'll get one node or multiple nodes. So with one node, you can run multiple instances of a virtual machine and then run different nodes to like get started. But then if you really want to benefit from having a cluster of machines with redundancy and whatnot, so of course get some hardware. And when you buy the hardware, it's very personal and it needs to be curated for your own needs. But yeah, I would say look at energy consumption, the amount of heat each of these machines create, and see if you can like put it in like an enclosure that's good enough for whatever setup you have, and play around with the options until you find the sweet spot. So this is such a time-consuming hobby, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's very rewarding as well, but start small and go as far as you think is necessary.
Cool. Thank you. Maybe then, as the last question, you already mentioned a little bit about your plans. What are you planning to do? So what are you going to do next with your home server, your home setup?
Yeah, so I'm planning to move to another apartment, and I'm thinking about rebuilding my home lab with the learnings that I've had so far, because it's a kind of moving target, and then every once in a while you just do some experiment somewhere, even though I'm trying to contain it in my like test setup with those 3 nodes. But then there's some legacy involved in there as well. So I'll certainly try to tidy things up, remove the things that I don't need, and streamline this JuiceFS thing that I mentioned, because I'm very happy with it at the moment. I might even like write some blog posts or create some videos about it in the future on how to do it. Another thing that I'm playing with is a software called FlannelD, and so with that you can create a shared network mesh type of thing. The terminology could be totally wrong, so I'm just looking at the software. But with that, you can have like a network layer that's transparently shared across all your machines. So instead of having like a container running on one machine with a certain IP address, you will be able to run a container, and any of the other containers will be able to reach that with an IP address because of this abstract network layer that's underneath your Docker engine. And that's very powerful. So I'm trying to play around with that. And for those who are wondering, am I like creating another Kubernetes? Yes, probably. But that's the fun of it. So I want to learn how that works.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I think you also had your own project about the virtual IP manager, right?
Yeah, that's another side project that I started, again, just to learn about some of the technologies that I wanted to learn about. So mainly this was like an attempt to play around with DQ-Lite. So DQ-Lite is similar to SQLite, but it's it is using Raft to create a cluster of nodes. Well, it's kind of like etcd, but with SQL constructs. Let's say it like that. And so I used DQ-Lite with a small Go program to create a virtual IP manager. So each of these nodes that are part of the cluster of DQ-Lite nodes will become, one of them will become the leader, and the leader will assume that virtual IP address, and then it sends some R packets to inform everybody that, hey, I have this IP address, and then the R table of other machines will be updated with the MAC address association to that certain IP address. So that allows you to have like high availability with a virtual IP address with different services. So let's say you can run 3 instances of AdGuard, or like an NFS process in 3 machines. And then, but instead of accessing these machines one by one IP address, you just like go to this virtual IP address, and this virtual IP address will be, you know,
the endpoint.
the endpoint.
Yeah.
To each of these machines, like depending on which one is the leader. And that's also part of my home lab at this moment for very critical services.
Yeah, I think if anybody is interested, then yeah, I'll put the link in the description and on the screen as well.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, thank you very much for your insights.
No problem.
I'm glad we had this conversation, and maybe we can talk later on more interesting topics.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for having me, and I look forward to more of these.
Okay.
And if anyone is going to look at my code, or I don't know, look at my setup, well, of course, any kind of critiques or suggestions are more than welcome. Yeah, so keep them on.
Great. Okay, thank you, Fardjad. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.
And cut.